An ancient citadel located on the rocky outcrop of Athens, with the name stemming from the Greek words akron, meaning highest point, and poli, meaning city. The term Acropolis itself is simply a generic Greek word, as there are numerous acropolis in Greece. This is the Acropolis of Athens. Still got you. The trek up to the Acropolis wasn't actually as tedious as you would think. You can tell everyone was as excited as me to explore a lot of the city in one day. Joining me to complete the Three Musketeers are some familiar faces from my previous Cyprus video, the girlfriend Tash and her cousin Styliano, who was more than happy to make new friends. I'll probably end up sounding like a broken record, but you really are at one of the highest points in Athens, which provides you with some amazing views across the whole city. But first up, after catching your breath at the Propylaea, the gateway to Acropolis, you make a quick pit stop at the Erechtheion. It was a temple, like all the others here, dedicated to the goddess Athena, the goddess of war, instantly recognizable by the porch of maidens at the front. There is also notably the altar of Zeus by the sacred olive tree. And now the star of the show, the Parthenon. Side note, it was glaringly obvious that the structure was adorned with temporary scaffolding. From what I gathered, the scaffolding had been there so long you would think it was left over by the ancient Greeks. But I guess restoration works really do take time. It really was something else to witness in person, standing at circa 14 meters high, 45 feet for my non-metric viewers. I think around 50% of the original structure and the ornate colours have been lost to wars and weathering over time. But nevertheless, still impressive that it has stood the test of time. As you can imagine, everyone was on the hunt for the best vantage point, but there was a level of camaraderie, with everyone taking turns to take each other's photos. There was always bound to be one. Now, being at one of the highest elevations in Athens, it was pretty much a 360 viewing point where you could spot the other major landmarks in the city. The viewing point with the flag was clearly the best one, but be prepared to queue and or get random limbs in your photos.
The zoo is closed.
Is it closed?
Probably, mate.
You send me an angel. That looks like a lot in the mountain.
After that beautiful intermission, we made our way around the rest of the site, constantly stopping to take in the backdrops. Here we have Mount Lycabettus, the actual highest point in central Athens. And if you just squint here, you can spot the Panathenaic Stadium, the ancient Olympic stadium made entirely of white marble, just right there behind the hills. Oh yeah, not forgetting the Herod Atticus Odeon, an ancient theatre that actually still hosts performances till this day. On our way out, there was a small rocky mound across the main Acropolis entrance. Bit of a treacherous climb for some. Well done. Once you got to the top, it offered unobstructed views north of the Acropolis, where you could spot the ancient agora, agora meaning marketplace, and its museum to the bottom right. Talk about the perfect backdrop to add to someone's modelling portfolio.
So if I go to UK, I still have data, right?
No.
I see it here.
No, with my Cyprus number, no.
The streets up to the Acropolis were pretty picturesque, with the area itself known as Anaphiotika, a district of Athens perched on the northeastern side of the Acropolis rock. It sits in stark contrast to the busy Plaka, with its quiet and isolated streets. Bright flowers spill over their walls, and the narrow alleyways often lead to dead ends. You will spot the beautiful cafes along the way where you can interrupt someone's lunch for a photo, or annoy the locals with your singing.
Carry on, man.
Speaking of singing, on one of our treks up, we had the most interesting running with a local gentleman, busker, and cat lover. We spotted him feeding the stray cats, which I of course tried to film before he stopped us in our tracks. He wasn't particularly keen on being filmed on camera because he felt that buskers weren't being treated fairly, with tourists sneakily filming them for content without leaving any tips. When I explained this wasn't the case, as I always made sure to put down some money before filming any of the street performers, he warmed to us and even let us try out his Bouzouki. Out of respect, I put the camera away for most of it, but he did leave us with a parting message.
Η Νατάσα παίζει μπουζούκι κάτω από την Ακρόπολη, δίπλα στον Άγιο Σιμεών, Στα σκαλοπάτια που πάμε για τα αναφιώτικα.
Yeah.
Παρακαλώ, χειροκροτήστε τη.
Μπράβο, μπράβο, μπράβο. Ευχαριστώ.
Πάρα πολύ.
Ευχαριστώ.
Πάρα πολύ.
Syntagma Square, what most locals would consider to be the center of Athens. It has had a lot of political significance since the 1800s, with syntagma meaning constitution in Greek. Nowadays, it is more of a meeting point and a popular spot for demonstrations or rallies as it faces the Parliament building. This is in fact one of the most photographed landmarks here. That's because of the tomb of the unknown soldier. The monument is an empty tomb created in the early 1930s, dedicated to Greek soldiers who were killed during times of war. It depicts a dead soldier lying down while holding a shield and wearing an ancient Greek-style helmet. But what is known to draw quite the crowd every hour is the changing of guards. The top of the stairs at the square also offer a nice view down the main strip along Ermou Street as we make our way into the hustle and bustle of Athens. Apart from one or two crossings, Ermou Street is a commercial avenue which has been largely pedestrianised. It is the primary shopping street here with lots of recognisable names like H&M and Zara. You can bet we made a few stops for Tash, although understandably I myself had to make a stop. Oh yeah, the one and only Greek freak. As you make your way down the street, you can't help but stop for, yet again, the buskers. There's just something about the music. Oh, there he goes. I think they really add to the experience of visiting new cities, more so when they're traditional.
What do you say? Like talisman. Would you know? Προσέχει.
Ποιο? Μα το μάτι. A charm.
No, it's charm.
A penis, that's what it is.
No, it's a protective dick. Protects you from...
The bad eye.
We're now at the Monastiraki flea market, a collection of shops selling items that would largely cater to tourists, and where Tash would point at what she wants and look over at me.
1,200.
Don't take a picture. Don't take a picture. She told you 1,200.
Let's see what our tour guide thinks.
It's everywhere, dicks.
Okay, not everywhere. The streets lead you into the liveliest square in Athens, Monastiraki, where everything intersects from the shopping streets to the metro lines. The area was fairly busy, not too busy this time of year though, with market stalls, buskers, you name it. We even came across this young lady with her really cool hustle of taking vintage photos and printing them out like old school newspaper headlines. Check her out if you spot her on your travels here. This stuff makes some cool memorabilia. We made a quick pit stop at Coffee Island for a dose of caffeine, pretty well situated across Monastiraki Square if you're ever on the lookout for some. Guess who managed to make more friends? There's a video.
Take one of us that we need for the portrait thing.
Whilst there are historic areas dotted around the city, it is worth noting that you have to pay to enter the majority of these. Makes for a very interesting mix of the old and new though. There aren't many cities where you park your cars right in front of the gates to an ancient public space. After working up an appetite, we now had the not so easy task of finding somewhere to eat in a busy Monastiraki. The problem wasn't finding a restaurant, but more sifting through the plethora of options. Those are the faces of people who are trying not to be rude after being pressured to eat at this restaurant. The problem is, everywhere else close by was pretty much a copy and paste. And as many hungry ventures go, we did end up sitting down to eat here. The musicians were pretty much the deciding factor. I think the guy on the left agrees. Whilst the restaurant was okay for a couple of hungry travellers, there was one that stood out during our time here. Known as one of the best brunches in Athens, the Makers offers a wide variety of options. The standout for us were the acai bowls and pancakes, but they have a load of other options. From what I gathered, they tend to have queues, especially during the weekend, so it might be worth booking beforehand if you can. It also doubles as a clothing store for both branded and professional chef apparel. Items like t-shirts and aprons, which can also be custom made. Definitely worth a visit if you're in the Monastiraki area. A lot of the alleyways in and around Monastiraki had hidden bars and cafes. However, there was one that you couldn't simply just walk past, a bit of a not so hidden secret in the center of Athens. This very unconventional cafe is called Little Cook. It is tucked away in a narrow street away from the hustle and bustle of Monastiraki. It is a favourite with both tourists and locals due to its extravagant decorations, which tend to be seasonal. I guess it's a giveaway that we visited in October, because we were met with a very spooky setting. The only element that I'm told stays the same throughout is the large dragon on the roof. One less decoration if you do a Game of Thrones theme. As you can imagine, this is pretty ideal for all you Instagram lovers, as my fellow good-looking companions try to capture the perfect backdrop. It has both indoor and outdoor spaces, so there's a good amount of seating, but most importantly, what is the food like? Well, it was okay. I give it a 6 out of 10, and that's taking into account the decor.
Why are you guys not eating?
Because we are men. We don't eat cakes.
Depends on what kind of cake we're talking about, really. But yeah, all in all, it was a vibe. I'd stick to the maker which I recommended earlier, but if you have any kids, it might be worth your while.
Πώς ξέρω να πάω σαν εκεί, νομίζω ότι...
Acropolis!
Δεν έχει Acropolis station.
Έχει.
Δεν ξέρει καλά.
Look here.
I may not be fluent, but something tells me they've got everything under control. Maybe I'll sit out of this one. Today we're at the Acropolis Museum, which provides a permanent house to important archaeological findings from, you guessed it, the Acropolis. We're talking 150,000 square feet of exhibition space, with a cleverly designed building layout from the mind of architect Bernard Schumi. What works so well are the double height spaces with exhibitions installed in chronological sequence. You start with the excavations below ground, with glass floors not only allowing you to see below from the other floors, but also letting in natural light throughout the museum. At ground floor level, you are met with a collection of artifacts such as painted vases and items from the sanctuaries along the Acropolis slopes. Speaking of slopes, the ground floor's gallery of the slopes of Acropolis emulates the climb up to the sacred hill. Also, fun fact, the circular holes you see here have been placed at intervals throughout the concrete walls in order to absorb sound. Some of the highlights as we made our way up were the caryatids, sculptures which acted as columns supporting the roof of the Erechtheion southern porch. What was more so impressive was the restoration process behind the sculptures, where the pollution was painstakingly removed, restoring the marble to its original colour, and revealing traces of the original pigments used for the decorations. Another sculpture that drew quite a bit of attention was the head of Alexander the Great, a marble structure portraying him at a young age as he would have looked during his visit to Athens. And we also played a game of Spot the Difference. The top floor is a recreation of the Parthenon sculptures as they would have appeared back in ancient times. However, there are sections that reside in other museums around the world. Greece has been constantly calling for the repatriation of these objects, but it has been to no avail.